press the button then.
It's now live.
Okay, good evening and welcome everybody to the Rushcliffe Borough Council Cabinet meeting for January. I'd just like to remind everyone that the Cabinet meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. A recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. Today's Cabinet will be considering an exempt item, which is item 10, the Parkwood Leisure Limited contract variation. For that part of the meeting, the public will be excluded and the live stream on YouTube will actually be ended. In addition, under the Local Authorities Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information England, Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting. The use of any such image or sound recording is not under the Council's control. All councillors who have joined the meeting are being asked to ensure that their microphones are muted at all times and their videos are hidden. All participants are reminded to ensure that the audio for the meeting is as clear as possible on the microphones. So they should be muted on default settings to keep background noise to a minimum unless you're speaking. So could I please just go through the Cabinet and officer attendees to make sure you can hear proceedings, starting with Councillor Ediving.
Yes, I can hear, thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Yes, I can hear.
Councillor English.
Yes, I can hear.
Councillor Moore.
Yes, I can hear.
Councillor Upton.
Yes, I can hear, thank you.
And officers, Mrs. Marriott.
Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Mrs. Sewell.
Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Mr. Linfield.
Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Mr. Banks.
Yes, Councillor Robinson.
And Mrs. Tambini.
Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I just ought to remind to use the raise hand functionality for people who wish to speak. And as regards voting, I would ask councillors who wish to abstain or vote against an item to raise their hand first. If no councillor indicates, then we'll take the item as being carried. So if I'd like to move now on to the agenda. First of all, Mrs. Tambini, apologies for absence.
There are no apologies from members of Cabinet for absence.
Declarations of interest. Two? No?
Yes. There's one
Sorry,
from
yes. Yes, Councillor English.
Yeah, I declare non-pecuniary interest on item 10 for Parkwood, and I'll leave the meeting at that point.
Right, okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting on the 8th of December 2020. If I could, I would like to propose that we accept those minutes. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ediving. Anybody against accepting those minutes or wishes to abstain? No, those meeting minutes are moved. We have no opposition group leaders questions and we have no citizens questions. So we can go on to item 7, which is the Rushcliffe Enterprises Limited, and I will deliver this item. Okay, I'm getting messages coming up on the screen about the videos. Mrs. Tambini, can you make any comment on it?
Can you see me? Because somebody's asked me to put mine on.
Yeah, we're getting video. We're
That's
getting
it.
messages through.
Yeah, they've gone now, Councillor Robinson.
Okay. So happy to move on. Yeah, we can all be seen, all be heard. Can't do any more than that. Not necessarily could be understood, but that's a different matter, isn't it? Okay, so item 7. So this report is really is covering the governance structure for council-owned companies and recommends that we put some simplification under the current structures. Obviously, key to the structures of all our companies is the absolute very best practice in terms of governance, and particularly in light of course, recommendations that have come out of the management of Rotherham Energy by Nottingham City Council. Just going back to 2017, we set up the Rushcliffe Enterprise Partnership, Limited, up in 2017. And in 2018, we actually revised that structure, basically to allow new companies that the council may wish to create to actually run under that. And under one such company was the LLP. So this really, the LLP work is set out in item 4.3. And this was some of the work that was actually done. And as you can see there, it's quite varied, running from Abbey Road housing delivery and to some of the more sort of complicated work. And this was the mixed use scheme that we looked at for Bridgewood Car Park. So these were all feasibility studies. And of course, these fulfilled their objectives in terms of the feasibility. These were obviously looked at in terms of business plan. And this is where we're actually using the LLP. Now, across all those items that were mentioned there, we decided not to take those forward based on business plan risk and conditions, etc. So in terms of moving forward, as this recommendation is that we simplify now the structure and we look at dissolving the PSP. And if you look at item 4.9, it goes through the steps to looking at the submitting a notice of dissolution of the council, to the council of the PSP. So they're set out there. You'll see there is actually a figure in there of 11,000. This was to do with external architects around the Bridgewood Road car park and also Abbey Road. Just moving forward, if we just go to page 12, you can see there are a diagram there which sets out what the structure was. And in terms of how we set this up, as I say, was to really accommodate any new companies as we go forward. Obviously, the pandemic has also had a significant impact on the council's ambitions this way. So you can see there that I say the way that structure was set up. What I should mention at this point, of course, is the live company we have under the council control is Streetwise, and under the new structure, which is on the following page, you'll see the recommendations contained in that in terms of the new structure, particularly over Streetwise, which would have the oversight board with 2 meetings per year, obviously overseeing the operational board, but also important to highlight then the scrutiny committee's involvement there, which is obviously absolutely key to ensure the best governance practices. And they'll be having the annual update from the Streetwise board. And in fact, the managing director of Streetwise will actually attend that scrutiny meeting. Obviously, day to day, there is a management contract, which is obviously done by officers with Streetwise. But as regards this report, this really is proposing now that, as I say, that we dissolve the PSP and that we put forward the structure that is set out on page 13. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, the key is really the oversight and the governance of companies, and this structure does allow us to add companies in the future if we do see their ambition come again after everything else that is being going on. So to achieve this, I would like to propose the recommendations which are set out item 2 on page 9, which, if I just go through those, that the PSP Rushcliffe LLP is wound up and any outstanding amounts are settled within existing budgets. Rushcliffe Enterprise Limited is made dormant and retained its name only to allow the council to use the company in the future if it wishes. The revised company and governance structure set out in paragraph 5.3 is adopted to provide proportionate oversight and governance of Streetwise Environmental Limited and Streetwise Environmental Trading Limited. And then lastly, the Chief Executive Monitoring Officer are requested to make the necessary changes to existing company models and articles before the end of the financial year. So those recommendations really reflect the purpose of this report. I'd like to move those recommendations tonight. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Edderby.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Robinson. I would like to second the recommendation. You've pretty much covered all of the things that the recommendation does cover, but I think it's just worth looking at a little bit at the background of why we went to a company called PSP, Public Sector Partnership Limited. We'd identified them as a company that could help councils to make the most of their assets and also bring in external funding if it was required in order to do some big projects. And I think it's been well worth them having a look at all of our assets as part of this process. And it's given us some things that we may well do in the future. The Bridgeford Road car park is something that we will revisit at some stage, whether if that's a positive move, whether it becomes a positive, let's do it or not. But we basically got plans in place that we can again bring forward in the future if it's appropriate. And really, with dissolving this, there is no need to have Rushcliffe Enterprises Limited anymore. And as you quite rightly said, the one company that we do have that we need to monitor is Streetwise. And it's quite clear that we can do that without having to have the umbrella of Rushcliffe Enterprises Limited, and it can be done through scrutiny and through the oversight board. So there's no, there will be plenty of scrutiny of our commercial activity through Streetwise. So with all of that, basically, I'm pleased that we went through the exercises that we did with PSP, looking at how we might use some of our assets for residents basically benefit, and that I'm very happy to second the recommendation that we simplify things and go back to the proposals that are on the table in the recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edderby. Councillor Upton.
Thank you, Chairman. In the light of recent governance issues with some local authorities, I think it's essential that we regularly review the governance of our structures and companies. So the timing of this report, in my opinion, is very appropriate, and I'll certainly be supporting the recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Upton. I think Councillor Edderby made a very good point in terms of over the last couple of years, we've actually been reviewing all our assets. I think that's very, very good practice. And obviously having a partner to look at that. We've looked at a lot of different projects, all being tested against a sound business case, against risk, against what the opportunities were. And it's good staying here tonight that I can say that we've looked at some projects come to fruition in different ways. For instance, Bingham, the community hub that we're looking at building across there. We're hopefully progressing very shortly with Abbey Road. So it's not just a case of not doing things, it's a case of doing some of the things differently. And obviously, absolutely key to us is the taxpayer and making sure that we give the very, very best value for money to our taxpayers across Rushcliffe. But this report really is about simplification. I absolutely agree. At the heart, of course, will always be Streetwise. It's a very important business to us. The governance, as Councillor Edderby and Councillor Upton said, is absolutely critical to make sure that we are seriously guarding and looking after taxpayers' money and the interest in that business. So with the recommendations that I've set out there on page, sorry, I just got the page there on there now. Beg your pardon, on the page 9, item 2 to D, seconded by Councillor Edderby. Is there anybody who would like to object or abstain to those recommendations? That's fine, so it's carried unanimously. Thank you very much indeed. So if we could move on to item 8 on the agenda. Do we stop recording now, or shall I read out first?
If you could read the paragraph out, Councillor Robinson, and then we'll stop the recording.
This item is exclusive to the public. This is to move under the regulation 21(1)(b) of the local authorities executive arrangements, access to information, England regulations 2000, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act of 1972. Do we vote on this, or do we just accept now that I've actually put that forward?
Yeah, we just accept you put that forward, and I'll now ask Mr. Allen if he could stop the recording.